I'm done trying to win over people's hearts.
Let's attack their hearts.
We can work with fear.
Yes, we can.
There is perhaps no First Lady of the United States that should be more feared than Claire Underwood. The wife of Democratic President Frank Underwood is a woman not to be trifled with, one who has been at her husband's side from the very political beginning and who has gone from wife to United Nations ambassador to First Lady and recently candidate for vice president on her husband's ticket. Claire Underwood is, of course, a Hollywood fabrication and house of cards. But in light of what the presidency has become in recent years, the knowledge that some First Ladies were more powerful than simply being figureheads, the time is here to consider and ask yourself, how powerful should the First Lady be? And for someone so close to the seat of power, are they fair political game when deciding who will lead America? Your phone calls are a part of this discussion, of course. Let's answer those questions with you in your singular viewer style at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-NEWSMAX. Now, our guest is the award-winning television and multimedia producer who understands the news is not all about flash. It's about storytelling and pulling people in with great interviews. Taking his craft to author a new book, unusual for their time, On the Road with America's First Ladies. Let's welcome Andrew Oak to the Hardline. Andrew, it's a pleasure to get a chance to talk with you. And I guess the first question that comes to mind is, what was it about First Ladies and what they are and what they exude that brought you to this project?
Well, it's wonderful to be here with you, Ed. I had the good fortune of being one of the producers for C-SPAN's First Lady's Influence and Image. What my specific job for the show was to travel around to every location, from Martha Washington to Michelle Obama, every train station, every church, every museum, every library, and learn as much as I could about these women before, during, and after the White House. It was an all-access pass to some of the nation's greatest historical collections, and I basically just fell in love with all these women and their stories and their lives.
What was the common thread that as you started to look at all these First Ladies, the first thing that really started to speak to you?
You know, it's funny. The title of the book, Unusual for its time, started out as kind of a joke because I went to each of these locations, and of course everyone's favorite First Lady or favorite president is the place where they're working. They're there for that legacy and that administration. And the common thread was that they were all unusual for their time. This unique sorority of women, these First Ladies, they're not necessarily unique amongst themselves, but they're unique among women of their time. So the fact that they would go above and beyond and follow these men or be attracted to the men that would become president is their common bond.
1-877-NEWSMAX if you'd like to join us. And we're going to talk about this lady here in a moment with one of our callers, but I was going to bring it up anyway. Eleanor Roosevelt. When you started to look at her life, what is it about her that made her so unique for her time? And I would guess the first thing that comes to my mind is one outspoken lady who didn't really give a damn if you didn't like or hated what she said.
That's absolutely true. Now, also keep in mind, she's the longest First Lady in history, meaning that she lived in the White House the longest. Her husband was elected to an unprecedented 4 presidential terms. So she is First Lady for 4 terms. He dies very shortly into his 4th term, and Truman takes over. But the longest sitting president in the history of our country would not have been president if it were not for this woman. We talked earlier about their power, their influence in the introduction you mentioned, Ed. And when Franklin Delano Roosevelt contracts polio, diagnosed with polio, he's going to step out of public life and just remain a private lord of the manor, as Springwood up in upstate New York. His mother was very happy to have him at home and out of public life. That didn't suit Eleanor because that means she would be trapped in this house under the thumb of her mother-in-law. So it's Eleanor Roosevelt that hires the political strategist that gets FDR back on his feet, so to speak, where she then becomes his physical legs because of the ailment and becomes the influential woman that she was.
All right, now, Tom from Greenwood, South Carolina, joins us at 1-877-NEWSMAX, and he believes that Eleanor Roosevelt was the best First Lady. He had to leave us here momentarily, so we're going to continue on because there are people out there who do indeed believe that she was the finest. But let me ask you about Nancy Reagan, because we've heard an awful lot here in the last several months as the former First Lady passed, about how she was an influence on her president. She was right there, and that's what these women are. They sit right there next to the seat of power. And many people are now starting to understand that they do have a part in running this country. They're not just figureheads.
Nancy Reagan came right out and said it. She said, I sleep in the same bed with this man. We should not be surprised that these women have the ear of their presidential husbands. You can go back to the very first president, George Washington. He writes very clearly that he is not in his right mind. He can't stand it when he's away from his wife, when he's away from Martha, and she travels at great risk to almost every winter encampment of the Revolutionary War so Washington can basically think straight. Nancy Reagan is no different than that. She is around to comfort. She's a sounding board. Think of your own spouse, your own significant other. You confide in them. If you have a love relationship, if you have a working relationship with your significant other and spouse, you're going to come home and say, how was your day, honey? You know, this is how it went. And when you're the president, your day can go quite differently than most other people. And Bess Truman, another first lady that had unprecedented access to her husband. They were so close. And she was in on discussions, very serious discussions, in ending the war and dropping the bomb. It's documented. We know about this. Edith Wilson, again, another wartime first lady who had the ear of her husband quite significantly. It goes on and on. It's all throughout the time of our country. It really
does go on and on. When you look, there's a lot of power involved there. And now people are going to start deciding who is that first lady. That's a big point as well. The book, again, is unusual for their time. On the Road with America's First Ladies. Andrew Oak, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with the book, my friend.